Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. PBO Advisory Group is really happy to welcome Cornerstone Wealth Advisors, whose mission it is to act in the best interest of their clients by providing wealth counseling that's built upon a foundation of time-tested principles, transparency, and proven results. And today we're going to talk a little bit about California's new retirement law and 401k best practices. It's really interesting stuff. And now that the economy is rebounding, we hope you're all starting to look forward and into retirement planning. A few housekeeping items before we get started. There is a chat function in the webinar. If you have questions throughout the webinar, send your questions into the chat, and I will get those questions over to Mike or Cameron, and they will answer those. And then, of course, we will also have a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so that if you have questions you want to ask at the end, you can also do that. The presentation will be available after the webinar, so that will come out to you as a link via email. If you've registered for this, you'll also get a link to the presentation. So no need to take copious notes. This will be available to you after the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Michael Salmon. Michael is the co-founder of Cornerstone Wealth Advisors and has 14 years of experience as a financial advisor. He's worked in both personal wealth management and as a retirement plan advisor throughout his career, and he is a certified financial planner and heads up Cornerstone Wealth Advisors wealth management team, while also advising on a number of retirement plan clients. Mike is originally from Boise, Idaho, and moved to North County, San Diego to start his own financial advisory firm alongside his since-retired partner. And then we have Cameron Ziegler, and Cameron heads up the Cornerstone retirement plan business, acting as the retirement plan service specialist within the CWA team. He's worked nearly exclusively in the corporate retirement plan world since being added to the team 4 years ago. Cameron is originally from Carlsbad and has cultivated his skill set as a 401k specialist advisor with CWA. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and he's going to start to get us educated about CalSavers and retirement plans.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about CalSavers. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with CalSavers, it is really targeted to those companies that do not currently have a corporate sponsored retirement plan in place currently. The CalSavers program is specific to California. It's a state mandated retirement employee savings vehicle. So we'll go into depth on CalSavers here in a moment, but I also wanted to touch on our other topic, which is plan benchmarking. So this is for those who currently do have a 401k or another type of retirement plan in place. With the plan benchmark, it's where a third-party advisor will come in and analyze the services, investments, and also the fees associated with the plan and compare it to the peers, other peers in terms of asset size, employee size, and so forth. And then lastly, with the plan benchmark, it is actually a fiduciary responsibility of the trustee of the plan for each and every plan sponsor. So it is a requirement that you actually do this as well. Slide, please. So let's talk about CalSavers real quick. So like I said, CalSavers is a retirement savings program that was created to give Californians an easy way to save for retirement. And it was created by the government. It was actually a really good idea. And the reason why it was is because we really do have a savings crisis, not only in California, but the United States in general. Nearly 1/3 of all Americans have no retirement savings whatsoever. Now, experts say we do need between about 70 to 80% of our pre-retirement income after we stop working to fund our, our retirement needs. Now, of course, Social Security is there, and that's what covers sort of that other 20 to 30%. But it's on us as as people and as employees to save for that 70 to 80%. And the only way to do that is in our own retirement savings vehicles. Now, half of the California private sector workers have no retirements at all, literally zero. And the reason why that is that next bullet point you can see, about almost 7.5 million private sector employees between 25 and 64 are working years, do not even have access to an employer-sponsored retirement program. So they don't have any assets, and that's probably because they don't have the option to do it via a corporate-sponsored plan.
Yeah, and we really saw that, during this pandemic, right? People didn't have any savings, and so it became really apparent in that process. So, yeah, we all need to start saving.
Exactly. So this CalSavers program, or the state mandated retirement plan, it was started as of November of 2019. Currently, there's 3 states that have implemented this type of program, California being one of those 3. I would not be shocked to see many more states roll something similar to this out, because once again, it's not just a California issue here. The plan is sponsored by the state of California. It's actually facilitated by the employer, or sort of administered by the employer. And then, of course, it's funded by employee investments via payroll deductions. So per each state-specific deadline, and California has their own specific deadline that we'll go over here in a moment with Cameron, but businesses must certify that they have one of the 2 in order to comply with this state mandate. So you either need to start a retirement plan on your own. That could be a 401k plan, a 403b plan, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA. So there's many different options you have to start your own retirement plan, which we'll go into, or you can register and enroll in this state-run program. Once again, each state is using their own tiered rollout schedule based on employee size, and Cameron will go over what California's specific schedule here is.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Like he mentioned, the other 2 states that are rolling out something similar to this are all in different stages of their implementation process. But here we can look at the California-specific CalSavers rollout schedule. We can see that back in June of last year, it actually got extended to September due to coronavirus. But last year, it got rolled out for all employers who have 100 or more employees. So this program is live and active for those employers who have 100 or more employees. And we can see that in a little bit here. In June of this year, it's going to be rolled out for all you folks who have 50 or more employees if you don't have a retirement plan in place, you'll need to comply. And then next year, it's going to be put into play for all folks who have 5 or more employees. So California is clearly getting every single level of employer size involved in this sort of thing, because they want every employee out there to be able to access some type of retirement savings vehicle. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the details of the program itself. So it's obviously state mandated. It's a payroll deducted program, so similar to a 401k plan in that regard, but it is a Roth IRA. So it's a little bit different in that regard. There are Roth limits, IRA limits that apply, which are different. And there's some specific provisions and requirements that are, required by the program, such as we can see, any W-2 employee who's 18 or older and has been employed for 30 days must be automatically enrolled at that 30-day mark. And they must be automatically enrolled at a 5% deferral rate. And then at their 1-year anniversary of their enrollment date, you as the employer must engage their deferral rate and increase it by 1% year over year on that anniversary until they meet that cap of 8%. And then, like I mentioned, IRA limits apply. So the maximum that you're able to contribute as an employee is $6,000 into an IRA. Unless you're eligible for a catch-up contribution, you can invest an additional $1,000. And then I really want to highlight some of the bullet points at the bottom there, the penalties for non-compliance, because they're quite hefty. The way it works is after that deadline, you meet that deadline of June 30th, if you're an employer with 50 or more employees, you'll be served a notice of non-compliance if you have not taken action yet. And 90 days after being served that notice, if no action has been taken, you'll be levied a fine of $250 per eligible employee. So that's pretty hefty in itself. And then if no action is taken for another 90 days thereafter, an additional fine of $500 per eligible employee will be levied as well. So it's definitely something that I think you would want to get ahead of and get your ducks in a row and take care of it, just to avoid those kind of fees.
So Cameron, I have a question for you. If an employer already has a 401k program, but they're not automatically enrolling their eligible employees, are they non-compliant?
That's a great question. No, they are. So the way that the CalSavers rules apply, if you have any sort of retirement savings vehicle, whether it be, like Mike mentioned, a 401k, a 403b, a simple IRA, in place and available for your employees to take advantage of, regardless of the provisions within that plan, you are able to opt out of CalSavers. In order to opt out, you must go on to CalSavers website, create an account for your business, and register for an exclusion by essentially providing your plan number with your specific provider to pretty much prove that you have something in place with a provider. Thank you, Francesca. So as far as some of the administrative tasks go that Mike had mentioned earlier on, like he said, it's run by the state, so you're not getting any support from a specialized provider per se, or an advisor or an administrator. You're going to be required as the employer to manually track eligibility and enrollment status. You'll have to create an extra payroll file, essentially, that'll be submitted to a third-party administrator that's chosen by the CalSavers board, where you submit essentially your employee's hire date, eligibility dates, when they were enrolled, what their current deferral rate is at, and then you'll need to keep up with any new hires that are brought on, as well as keeping track of their anniversary of their enrollment to increase their deferral rate year over year. And then also at the bottom there, one other thing that's kind of put on your shoulders as the employer is to be able to handle your employees' ongoing questions and concerns. There's really no support from that standpoint from an advisor or another, specialized provider who can help kind of guide your employees. That's something that kind of falls on your shoulders as the employer, or you just have to direct them to the website and say, hey, you got to look it up yourself. So that's another thing that is kind of a bummer from the CalSavers side of things. And I think on the next slide, we're going to compare and contrast basically what the CalSavers requirements are versus a traditional 401k is what we're going to focus on today. So like we've already kind of mentioned, with CalSavers, there's no plan design customization allowed. You're forced to auto-enroll your employees at those deferral rates that we mentioned. You're forced to keep track of all of those housekeeping items as time goes on from a payroll standpoint. The investment menu is limited and pre-selected, and quite frankly, quite expensive at 90 basis points per year, 0.9%. And then obviously the IRA limits apply, so the contribution amount that you can make per year is far lower than it would be with a 401k plan. And then, like we just mentioned, there's no support from any sort of specialized providers or advisors for investment advice or education, which is one thing in itself. So on the other side of things, with 401k plan, you're able to do a lot more, add a lot more bells and whistles per se. You're able to customize your eligibility. You're able to create contribution types such as Roth versus pre-tax. You're able to allow your employees to take loans out of their 401k accounts, which is somewhat powerful. And then you're also allowed to, create an employer match, which is a tax-deductible expense for the business. And you're allowed to create a vesting schedule for that as well to kind of entice your employees to stay on board for longer to access that money. And then not to mention, you're able to work with providers like we've mentioned who will provide investment advice and monitoring over time, as well as employee education to ensure that all of your employees are comfortable with the benefit that's being offered and feel comfortable about their road forward towards retirement. And then in addition, with a 401k plan, you can add a couple of more bells and whistles that add tax benefits for employers, such as profit sharing or defined benefit features.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the other topic, which is retirement plan benchmarking. So a plan benchmark really starts with allowing a third-party 401k advisor to look into your plan structure, just provide an objective assessment. It's really going over these 5 items. So that advisor will look at your investment menu, they'll look at the service providers that you currently have on your plan. So that would be your record keeper and your administrators. Once again, the record keeper is where the employees would log on to the website to view their accounts. The administrator is going to be the person who keeps track of like the loans, the distributions, the annual filings you need to do with the 401k plan. Then there's also the advisor on the plan, making sure that they're performing the adequate functions that you're looking for on a 401k plan. Education, monitoring the investments, helping your employees with retirement planning. Then you have plan design features like Cam just went over. With a 401k plan, you actually do have the ability to design the plan, how you want it to look, whether that's employer contributions, whether that's an eligibility period, whatever it may be. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, the plan cost. So really comparing the cost of all of these things to your peers. And those peers mean, the same type of plan when it comes to an asset level and employee level. So we want to compare that plan to those other plans to make sure you're getting adequate service and paying an appropriate fee for those services. So the importance of benchmarking is really, think of it like your cell phone bill. I'm with Verizon, and I remember back, probably a couple years ago, I had 1 gigabyte of data. Well, now I can go get probably 3 to 5 gigabytes of data for that same price. So it's really just making sure you review your 401k plan or your other retirement plans and make sure that you're getting what you pay for. Is your plan level and then even your employee level fees not out of line with the market? Because you're really doing this 401k plan or retirement plan to provide a quality benefit for your employees and support your employees and keep that top talent there at your company. So benchmarking is really important because it is technically a fiduciary responsibility of the trustee of the plan. So there's really 3 things I just wanted to touch on here. So the ERISA Act of 1974, that's basically just says, look, there are rules designated to protect the employee's savings, and that must be followed by the plan fiduciary. So the fiduciary basically just means you as the trustee or you as the fiduciary of the plan need to act in the best interest of these employees who have this money saved in this 401k plan. And then, of course, the Department of Labor is sort of overseeing that and looking over our shoulders saying, hey, look, are you following the rules? Are you following your fiduciary requirements that come with a 401k plan? And then once again, with that fiduciary rule that you do have, you really just need to make sure the plans are reasonable. We're not really going out here and making sure we're just drilling down the fees to the lowest possible denominator. We're really just making sure we're getting a good service for an adequate fee, because I don't know about you, but I'd rather get just fantastic service and have fantastic features on my 401k plan. And you're going to pay a fee for that, but we just want to make sure it's a reasonable fee. Okay.
So, Michael, question about that. What are best practices in terms of benchmarking, particularly in this pretty volatile environment in the investment world? How often are you recommending trustees do benchmarking?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Department of Labor really wants us to go out there and benchmark our plan about every 3 years. I would say about 2 to 3 years is when we want to go out and get our plan benchmark. It's not something you want to do every year, but they are just making sure we do it about every 3 years. And then when you do it, just make sure you document it. in the 401k world, everything is about documenting. So just make sure you document that you went out there, you reviewed your services and features of your plan, and you compared it to other peers, and you can just file that away in your compliance folder that shows that you did your fiduciary duty and you went out and just made sure your fees were reasonable, and perhaps maybe there was a big savings there.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I have some questions here. And so I think this first one is probably for Cameron. Really, what is the definition of an employer in the CalSavers world?
Well, the definition of an employer in terms of where CalSavers looks is somebody who has W-2 employees on their payroll. And essentially what they're looking at is more or less what you submitted as an employer to the EDD, which you do every year for Employee Development Department, which is something that every employer submits. So they're taking a look at the 2020 data for that, at how many employees you have at that time when you submitted, and they're going off of that to ensure that all the folks who have W-2 employees are either participating in CalSavers or creating another form of a retirement plan vehicle. If that answers your question.
Okay. Yeah. So that means for-profits and nonprofits are required.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Religious organizations are exempt, though. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That's really helpful because we have lots of nonprofits here in San Diego, and they probably aren't aware that they need to be looking at this. And so the determination of employees, if I heard you, is really with the 941s and how many W-2s are in any given year is what defines the number of employees as well then? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So here's another question. It says, if I already have a plan in place, but my deadline is coming up, what action do I need to take to opt out of CalSavers?
Yeah, I think we touched on this briefly, but in order to successfully opt out, you need to go on to the CalSavers website and essentially register your business, and then apply for an exemption by providing proof that you have a plan by putting your employer, or excuse me, your service provider's information in, as well as your plan number, and then there's an exemption process that CalSavers will review and then approve if you in fact do have a plan in place.
So that means by June of 2021, employers with 50 folks or more need to be going on to that website if they've got a 401k?
Yeah.
Okay.
So action needs to be taken regardless. So that is something that if no action is taken, you're going to end up having received that notice, and then you're going to have to file a dispute. So if you have a plan in place and you have 50 or more employees, you must make sure that you go on and actually take action on the CalSavers website in order to be in the clear per se.
Yeah, and a couple points on that. I would really probably start now, because to get a 401k plan started, it takes about a month or so to get it up and running. Once again, you need to get that plan number, and that's okay. All they're basically doing is you're getting that plan number and you're typing in the information for this plan that you're getting started. But you need to start, about right now, about a month ahead of time or so, to get that plan number established so you can type that information in. And it really just comes down to, do you want to participate in this state mandated program, which it's rigid, but it is a great thing for these employees, or do you want to start your own retirement plan where you can have more control over what it looks like, who can participate? Do you want to offer some extra, what I call bells and whistles, in terms of maybe an employer match, maybe, and you can add a vesting schedule on top of that to keep those top tier employees, remaining at your company. It's basically just an added benefit that you can offer your employees to attract them to either come or stay at your employer.
Yeah, and I mean, if, just speaking from my client's perspective, it's a pretty tight labor market in San Diego right now. So anything that we can do, like these types of programs that attract talent and provides good benefits to our employees, I think is a really good investment, for a business. And if we have to do it anyway, why not do it as an employer rather than be put into a government program? But that's just my personal opinion. So what about folks that are already contributing to an IRA? Do these contributions apply to how they're contributing to their own personal IRA? How does that work?
Mike, do you want to take that one? Or?
Yeah, sure. So if you already have an IRA or a Roth IRA, it doesn't really matter if it's a pre-tax IRA or a Roth IRA. No matter if you have 100 IRAs out there or one IRA, and then of course this CalSavers IRA, the maximum you can put in across all of these IRAs is $6,000. If you're 50 years or older, they let you do a catch-up, so they'll let you do another $1,000. But for everyone who's 49 and under can put in $6,000 total, not $6,000 each, but $6,000 total. And then if you're 50 or older, they'll let you go up to $7,000.
And then with a company 401k, those numbers are slightly higher, isn't that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So with a 401k plan, you can go all the way to 26.5, Cam.
No, it's 26 flat. So it's 19,500 is the initial, and then with that catch-up contribution, if you qualify based on your age, you can contribute an additional 6,500. But just to add on to what Mike was saying, as far as you can have as many IRAs open as you want, you can only contribute 6,000 total. That responsibility, if you were to enroll or to participate in CalSavers, falls on your employees to keep track of what's going into their CalSavers account. So if I, as an employee, have my own IRA that I'm contributing, $500 a month to, and I have it on auto, with my own Schwab IRA or wherever it's held, I now have to take into account, okay, now I'm starting to make IRA contributions over here as well, and I need to turn the dial down on my own personal one. So that's something that definitely should be taken into consideration for those employees out there who are contributing to an IRA on their own already.
Okay. So if I'm an employer and I'm evaluating, what is the cost of the CalSavers program to the employer?
Yeah, it's actually. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
I think, the pro is that it doesn't cost any money. You don't have to, participate and pay fees to create the program. But the cons really come along with the added administrative tasks from a payroll and payroll information submittal standpoint. So whoever in the office is handling payroll and handling that sort of task is going to have a little bit more stuff brought onto their plate through this program by having to keep track of all of those items that we had touched on as far as hire date, eligibility date, deferral rates, and so on and so forth, because that is all something where you're not receiving support in addition to the CalSavers program. So it's really just the extra administrative tasks that come along with the CalSavers program. And really on the flip side with the 401k plan, there's some other beneficial items that can be added to the fray here, such as payroll integration, where there's no added tasks at all. If the employee makes a 5% contribution and there's payroll integration involved, that individual who handles payroll doesn't have to do anything to ensure that money is taken out of their paycheck and put into their account. It all happens automatically. So that's really the two sides of the story, is really those administrative tasks.
Got it. And so this question's for you, Michael. At what asset level does it make sense to benchmark a plan?
That's a good question. So we typically see the most savings is when a plan in total reaches about $1 million. So once they meet that $1 million threshold, you really see the most savings in terms of comparing it to its peers. But really, once again, I think it's more of a time question. So if you do that plan benchmark about every 3 years, most likely that plan is going to grow in asset size, maybe even employee numbers. And at that point in time, you typically are able to see a cost savings just due to the fact that that plan grew. We're now comparing it to your peers. And the thing with 401k plans is that cost of that plan is sort of, fixed when you set it up. That those 401k companies are not going to come in and say, hey, it's time to lower your fees. They're not going to do that for you. So it's on us to come in and really compare it to their peers and either say, hey, look, Mr. 401k provider, our plan is now $1 million. Let's we've gone out and compared our fees to our peers. This is what's the market cost for this. So let's get that lowered. So once again, about $1 million is at the absolute, usually best time to do it, but you should be doing it every 3 years.
And so as a general rule, as the assets in your plan grow, is there usually more room for negotiating that fee down?
Exactly right. Yep. There's really 2 factors. It's asset size, it's employee size. And I think, putting into account the annual contributions that go into the plan too is a little important, but it's really asset size, number 1, employee count, number 2.
Here's another question. If I'm an employer and I'm evaluating implementing a 401k plan versus using CalSavers plan, what are the pros and cons that I should be evaluating?
I think it really comes down to what kind of a benefit do you want to offer to your employees. Would you like to, provide a customized solution that can add those bells and whistles like we were talking about earlier, and really engage the employees to either, attract new top talent or retain your current top talent? Or is it something that you're all right with just rolling out the basic program that's being offered by the state? So it really comes down to, are you willing to, spend a couple extra bucks per year to provide a benefit that's more so best in class, or kind of ride the wave of what's being provided by the state and kind of skim along with that? There's really a big difference in the amount that your employees can contribute. I think that's a huge part of it. For those employees out there who need to catch up on retirement savings, if they're in a company that has a CalSavers plan, it simply doesn't allow that to happen. The maximum is $6,000 or $7,000 with the catch up. Whereas on the other side, you can contribute up to $26,000. So I think that is a big consideration if you have employees who need to catch up on their, retirement savings, or if you yourself as the employer do. I think it's very important to take a hard look at implementing a 401k plan instead of enrolling in the CalSavers program.
Yeah, and when I put my CFO hat on, right, and I'm working with potentially privately held companies, there are some tax advantages and some additional advantages to the owners of privately held companies with putting these types of plans in place that give them some additional savings vehicles. So I think that there are some other considerations from a financial point of view to look at when looking at these plans, and then of course looking at how the CalSavers programs are performing, against maybe other 401k type plans. I don't have a good sense of how CalSavers, how are they making investment choices and how are they measuring their success on the investment side?
Yeah, no, that's a great question as well. And to be honest with you, I don't think that's been widely considered. They provided an investment lineup kind of from the start, that's all chosen from the same investment provider, and it's basic and it's being rolled out, and that's what it is. On the flip side, with the 401k plan, you're allowed to bring in a professional to continuously monitor and provide quarterly reports to ensure that each and every investment within the lineup is best in class and is providing low fees to your employees and is performing well over the long term, because that's really what you want to see for retirement plans and for your retirement savings. So I think that, I hope that answers your question, but that's my answer.
It does. It really does. I mean, we as financial people at PBO are looking at our clients' 401k plans if they have them, and looking at the performance, and they're advising the trustees are working with their advisors on not only looking at fund lineup, but also educating employees on how they can plan for their future. So those are also things that I, as a financial professional, really like about the 401k plans, is that we're also providing education to our employees about retirement. And, it's a process, and we're all at a different stage in understanding in retirement, or in thinking about retirement. Of course, you think about it differently when you're 22 versus when you're 52. So, all of those things are really great in terms of the 401k program, because you just have a more bigger breadth of service to provide to your employees. So I personally really love that part of the 401k plans that my clients have, because it's a really great service for employees.
Absolutely.
So with that, I don't have any other questions. I think parting wisdom is, we've got a few action items since it's already April 29th. Folks, if you are 50 employers or over, you need to have a 401k in place by June, which is only a month away, or register in CalSavers. So you've got those two choices. Those are your choices. So if you are interested in talking to Michael or Cameron, their contact information is here. I'm also available to help you run through pros and cons, or Michael and Cameron can also do that, just so that we get you really prepared for this next deadline. And then, of course, the bigger deadline is next year, June 2022. Holy smokes, 5 employees or more. That's almost every employer in town. So that's going to be something we should all be thinking about. And so I guess one of the questions I have for you all is, if you have 5 employees, or between that 5 and the 50, is there an advantage to having the plan set up maybe beginning of 2022 versus June of 2022?
I mean, honestly, yeah, you get to give your employees the chance to begin saving earlier. And that's almost the most important, if not the most important part of putting yourself in a good position, 20, 30, 40 years down the line when you're approaching retirement, is the amount of time that you were contributing. So, and not to mention, you don't have to stress out about it when it comes up, near the deadline. But yeah, I would say that's definitely something that I would engage in if I was an employer who had, between 5 and 50 employees. Just get it taken care of. You can start a plan whenever you want. It's not necessarily like employee benefits, where there's an open enrollment period and you have to start it in the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year. You can create a 401k plan for your employees at any given time, and allow your employees and yourself to begin contributing from there.
Well, I want to thank you both very much. This was quite informative. I know a lot of folks have not been paying attention to this law in California and Oregon and Illinois. It's actually in 3 states, and probably many to follow. So I think this was quite informative, and we'll have a lot of folks that are going to need to pay attention to this in the next month or so. So again, thank you so much for your time and for starting your day with us, attendees. We will have this presentation to you available later this afternoon, and have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks, Francesca. Bye-bye.